Hey, ReMar nurses. I'm going to talk about my brand new course that I have been preparing for nursing students. It is the critical thinking course. Yes, it's a clinical judgment, critical thinking course for you. And I will be doing it during International Nurses Day. That is my next event. So I'm super excited about it. I will be having International Nurses Day. It'll be October the 25th. And this will be a free event. The critical thinking event is actually for international nurses. It is something that I have been working on since May. Believe it or not, it is a course that will help international nurses prepare for the NCLEX exam. And we're going to just focus on how to think critically. So if you're not an international nurse, you can still join the workshop. It's a free event, but this is something that I specifically want to do because I love my international nurses. Always have. My very first nursing students that I prepared for NCLEX were international nurses 10 years ago. So before anybody got on the international nurses, we're an NCLEX review company that helps international nurses, ReMar was doing that. So we're going to talk about critical thinking because it is so necessary. It is so necessary anymore. You hear a lot about, particularly with international nurses, the nursing shortage. And what they are saying is that, because nurses are not taking the vaccine, because nurses are walking off, because nurses are retiring, because nurses are burnt out, because nurses are just stressed out, there is a need for more international nurses to come over and replace the workers who are leaving. And so we see that. We know that there is a nursing shortage. So we love international nurses that come to the United States to work. However, another stigma about international nurses is that they don't have the education, they don't have the, how can I say it? They just are not up to par educationally compared to our domestic U.S. nurses. All right. So I don't like the stigma. Is there some truth about it? The truth is that when you work in an international capacity as a nurse, you just don't have the same responsibilities. And so that means you don't need the same level of education, or you don't have the exposure. That does not mean that you can't learn it. That does not mean that you're subpar. That does not mean that you are incapable of performing the duties. It just means you weren't exposed to the responsibility previously. And that can be said about some of the nurses here in the States. So what I want to do during this workshop is I want it to be for those who have the content down. You have the content, you know the stuff, but we got to take that next step, which is the critical thinking part. And so critical thinking is so important because it helps you to make your assessment findings quicker. It helps you to get to the solutions quicker. Critical thinking, and some people, they don't understand this. Critical thinking is not always about having the answers. Critical thinking is about having, watch this, critical thinking is about having more questions. Did you catch that? Critical thinking is about having more questions. It's about anticipating the question, right? And so I want to expose that, man. I want to expose that and really take off the fear and the anxiety when it comes to critical thinking. So of course, with my workshop, you guys know I am going to be giving out a free workbook. I have notes in front of me. So I'm just gonna go over some of the things just right now today, but we will be going over everything in detail on the workshop. Again, the workshop is going to be Monday, October 25th for this workshop. All right. So the benefits of this course, this is a workshop, is going to help you to develop your independent thinking skills, and it is going to help you with your own bias. Sometimes we can't be great critical thinkers because we have our own prejudices that we bring into the test. We have the way that we were taught, right? We have our own thinking about how it should be. And a lot of the time, that is what gets in our way. We get in our own way of passing the NCLEX because we don't know what research says about something, or we were taught one way in nursing school that is just, it's not what the board is looking for. And so whatever prejudices, and this is also why I'm doing this for International Nurses Day, because a lot of the prejudices that we carry into our nursing practice are cultural. And a lot of our preferences are cultural and not scientific. And so that's what makes it hard sometimes to pass this exam, because it's by the book. And so we see that the NCLEX is changing. The NCLEX will be changing so that some of those prejudices and biases will be removed. And so I've been preparing for that, the new changes, the next gen NCLEX, and I'm really excited about that. The NCLEX conference is coming up this week, so I will be attending that. And I'm, of course, what I always do, I always share what I've learned from the NCLEX conference. So I will be sharing that with you guys in real time. So I'm excited about that. But what we're talking about is we are talking about critical thinking. We're talking about the need for it. We're talking about things that inhibit our ability to critical think, and we're talking about doing this on International Nurses Day. Now, I'm finalizing the time. It will be in the evening for this workshop, so about 6 or 7-ish. I will be doing this workshop. Okay, so what else did I want to say? Oh yes, critical thinking. So another thing that gets in the way of critical thinking, I talked about biases, I talked about your prejudice, but another thing that gets in the way of critical thinking, and this is what I've learned through my research, and you guys know I am one of those people that once I get to researching something, it stays with me for a long time. So one of the things that I have found is that the one of the biggest inhibitors of critical thinking is self-discipline. And you can think about this in your own life. When it is time for you to make a decision, what happens to some of us? We paralyze, right? We stall. And the cost of this workshop is free. There's no cost for it. You guys know whenever I do workshops and I do them on Facebook or YouTube, they're totally free to you. It's not about me making money or getting you to pay for something. I genuinely want you to have this knowledge because it will empower you to be a better nurse. It will make you more confident, therefore saving a life one day, right? So what gets in our way of critical thinking is self-discipline. And that is the discipline to be still, to focus, and to think quickly. When we don't have this self-discipline, when we cannot quiet our fears, our anxieties, we begin to make excuses. We begin to procrastinate. Some of us have been putting off very important and big decisions because we don't have the discipline to focus and make a decision on it quickly. So what do? We say, oh, I'll put it off tomorrow. I'll take care of it tomorrow. I'll do that tomorrow. Is anybody out there relating to what I'm saying? We say, oh, if I just, I better ask so-and-so what they think about it. Like, we don't even have the confidence to make the decision, right? And so that is what happens during our board exam too. We get put in a situation by the exam and we freeze, we're paralyzed, right? We don't know what to do. And so our mind goes blank. We get insecure. We can't focus. We end up picking the wrong answer just because we want to get out of this uncomfortable predicament. And so a lot of us don't have the success we want in our lives because we have not been focused, because we have not disciplined ourselves in order to get through this type of situation. So I like how the Bible says we have to judge rightly. We have to be able to judge rightly. And so if we don't practice this, then those muscles are not strong. So we are going to talk about the discipline. We're going to talk about how we are to analyze the facts, because you guys, most of you, especially if you're studying in my virtual trainer, this is something that I'm giving as a free additional resource to that content. So with critical thinking, we know we have to think clearly. We know we have to be able to read what is there, okay? Not think about what we want to be there. We have to be able to read what is there. And I like that. You have to have discernment when you are critically thinking. And very importantly, I mentioned this just a few seconds ago. You have to be able, when you are given a question, you have to be able to ask more questions. So I want to show you how to ask the questions, because critical thinking is not about the answers, right? Critical thinking is about anticipating the questions, anticipating the problems. That is what the exam is looking for. Do you know how to prevent complications? Even in your own life, we know, and it's just as simple as this. Here's the simple point of it. If I sit down and I drink a large glass of soda, what is going to happen to me? Just as simple as that. Right? If I sit down and I drink a large glass of Pepsi, tell me what will happen 2-3 hours later. Tell me what will happen the next day later. If this becomes my routine, what will happen to me in a year or 2 years? This is how it works. It's asking more questions. If I sit down and I drink a large glass of soda, I know within 30 minutes, my blood sugar is going to do what? My blood sugar is going to go up, right? And so then what happens when my blood sugar goes up? Well, my pancreas is going to produce insulin, right? To bring my blood sugar down. This is clinical judgment. This is critical thinking. And so when all of that insulin is released into my system, what is going to be a complication I'm going to have? What am I going to have? Right? So I see there, I'm going to become sluggish. Yeah, eventually I will become sluggish because my blood sugar is going to crash, right? It's going to go up and then it's going to go down. Also, you guys know if you have a high circulating blood glucose level, it is going to deteriorate what organs, right? So my eyes, my kidneys, they will take a hit. My vessels will take a hit, so that if drinking soda becomes a primary staple of my diet, I'm going to have complications. So we're going to do that. We're going to, in this workshop, we are going to look at some very common scenarios that registered nurses are coming in contact with, and even LPNs. Please come to this clinical judgment critical thinking course. Please, please come, because what we are talking about is common nursing scenarios, and that is what the board will test you on. And then the cognitive processes, or the way we think about those scenarios. We have to be able to ask the right questions. And Vaughn says, I will stop the soda. I will stop the soda. And we're going to talk about a whole bunch of things, so hopefully you won't have to give up too much, right? All right. So we're going to ask relevant questions. We are going to arrive at reasonable conclusions. The time, I'm still solidifying the time. It will be October 25th, but I'm still solidifying the time, maybe around 6, 7, or 8 p.m. Eastern time. So it'll be a prime time special. All right. And then the link to join will be available this week, because you want to get the workbook, my notes, all those good things. All right. And let me just say this, okay, so I'm not going to keep you guys long. This course about critical thinking, I want you to understand that critical thinking is not intelligence, okay? It's not intelligence. And that means that you, how do I say it? The smartest person in the world, okay, the smartest person in the world does not necessarily have the ability to make good decisions. Does that make sense? Okay, the smartest person, can anybody say that plainer than that? The smartest person in the world, you can be highly intelligent and make poor decisions. You can be highly intelligent and not know how to anticipate problems. Oh my goodness. Some of the most brilliant people in the world, their life is a disaster. Their life is a total disaster. And so I'm saying that to encourage a nursing student out there. Yes, the smartest person in the world may not have common sense. That's what I needed to say. Critical thinking is about using common sense. And remember, with this exam, A to B leads to C, right? And so that is you being able to see the steps ahead of you and get to that conclusion. You don't have to know everything about nursing to know that if a person comes in with an elevated temperature, there's probably an infection somewhere, right? This is what I'm trying to say. If you have common sense, I like that. If you have common sense, you can pass the NCLEX exam. That is good news for somebody. That is good news for somebody. I need you to share this video because people need to be at this critical thinking workshop because a lot of us feel defeated about it. We don't feel good about it. We know all of the facts.